The snow whispered as it fell, cloaking the jagged rocks in ghost-white silence. Sergeant Elias Ward crouched behind the broken husk of a recon pod, his eyes scanning the treeline, his gloved hands tight around the grips of a weapon no soldier had used in over 2 centuries. The heavy frame of the Gatling gun gleamed dully in the morning light, its bulk out of place in a world of energy weapons and orbital artillery. But he knew its worth, and more importantly, he knew the Empire didn't. They called this place Planet 47 Kappa, a frigid orb on the edge of forgotten space. But to Ward, it was home, Earth's last colony, if it could still be called that, hidden beneath layers of corporate indifference and dominion charts that marked it uninhabitable. They had survived here, off-grid, scavenging remnants of a golden age long past, living by grit and muscle while the galaxy looked elsewhere. Now, after decades of silence, the Empire had returned, not with offers, not with trade, but with soldiers. Across the valley, the sound of thrusters echoed, sleek, dark shapes moving low, silent and clinical. The Galactic Empire's forward units patrolled the snow with precision, their armor like a second skin, visors reflecting cold intelligence. Ward watched them with narrowed eyes. "They don't see us as a threat," Isla muttered beside him. She was younger by 10 years, wiry and fast, her breath misting in the cold air. Her rifle was old but well kept. Everything she owned was. "Not yet," Ward replied, voice low. "Let's keep it that way. They think we're tribal. We are tribal. But we remember." Ward nodded once. They drilled every youth with ancient war manuals, practiced maneuvers from conflicts that predated fusion drives. He'd taught them to track, to hide, to fire without hesitation. He'd told stories of humanity's early rebellions, sometimes whispered, sometimes shouted over firelight. The old wars had given birth to monsters, but also heroes. This was no rebellion. Not yet. But the first step of war was always the same, being underestimated. Isla checked her scope again. 3 scouts. Same as yesterday. Ward steadied his breath. "We give them a warning. They push further tomorrow. Then they bring armor. And we're done." "No," he said. "Then we get creative." From behind them, the wind shifted and another figure approached, broad-shouldered, carrying a pack almost as large as herself. Sarah dropped to one knee beside Ward, blinking snowflakes from her lashes. Her fingers were stained with carbon and oil. "The rig's ready," she said. "It'll take a minute to spool." Ward glanced at the gun. The Gatling looked like something torn from a museum, barrels worn, trigger assembly half exposed, ammo feed converted to a mechanical crank system. But it worked. He'd made sure of that. Sarah had rebuilt it, salvaged a motor from a mining rig, aligned the barrels by hand. No AI, no diagnostics, just stubborn knowledge and patience. She was 18. The Empire had called her generation lost primitives. He called her his best engineer. "They'll hear from orbit," Isla said with a half-smile. "That's the point," Ward replied. He looked down the slope again. The scouts were closing now, the closest within 100 meters. They moved with choreographed grace, sweeping the terrain like it was already conquered. One even had his visor up, chewing something as he walked. Ward hated that more than the armor. "They don't care," Isla muttered, as if reading his mind. "They will." He waited until the lead scout crested a snow-covered boulder. Then he stood. No ceremony, no war cry, just action. The Gatling gun roared to life, its barrels spinning with metallic scream that shattered the mountain silence. Lead tore through the air like thunder. The scout's chest exploded before he could react, his body crumpling backward in a spray of red and sparks. The others dove for cover, but there was none. Old world bullets weren't like energy bolts. They didn't hum politely. They cracked bone. They ricocheted. They tore. The Gatling carved through rock and synthetic armor alike. One scout fell screaming, his leg gone. The third tried to run. Ward adjusted his aim. Silence returned after 15 seconds. Steam rose from the gun, a softness in the cold. Ward let go of the grip, flexing them fingers. Sarah was already checking the barrel alignment. Isla moved forward cautiously, rifle raised, boots crunching through the snow. Ward didn't follow. He watched the tree lean. He wasn't sure what he expected to see. Perhaps drones. Perhaps nothing. But he knew, absolutely, that they were watching. The Empire always watched. By nightfall, the entire camp buzzed. Not with fear, but something else. Not hope exactly, but anger reshaped. They had drawn first blood. They'd taken down 3 scouts with a relic of rust and fire. And for the first time, the villagers weren't whispering about survival. They were asking when they would strike next. Ward sat on a crate, sharpening a blade out of habit. Across from him, Isla cleaned her rifle with mechanical calm. The fire between them burned low, casting red light across her face. "You know they'll retaliate hard," she said. He nodded. "I mean hard, Elias. They don't lose lightly." He set the blade down, stared into fire. "We'll vanish again. Make it seem like a fluke. A trap, maybe. And if they send a commander, we kill him too." Isla didn't smile. She didn't laugh. She just nodded. From behind them, Sarah approached with a rusted datapad. She tapped the screen and turned it toward Ward. It showed static first, then the faint outline of a transmission intercept. Voice logs. "They are watching," she said quietly. "Low orbit relay pinged their field commander after the hit. Said we used archaic projectile kinetics." Ward's brows lifted. "They're confused." "Better than afraid," Isla added. Ward disagreed silently. Confusion invited curiosity. But fear? Fear made even empires hesitate. That night, he wrote a message on a sheet of plastic salvaged from an old interface screen. Just a phrase. Something crude. Something that would survive. "We remember Earth. Do you?" He hung it from a splintered antenna at the edge of the kill zone. When the Empire's retrieval team came, they'd see it. By dawn, the snow had mostly buried the bodies. But the Gatling gun remained, covered with a tarp. Ready? Ward stood at the edge of the ridge, scanning the white horizon. For a moment, he felt old, not from years, but from memory. He had fought in 100 battles on other worlds before disappearing into exile. He had seen orbital bombardments reduce cities to dust, seen entire cultures rewritten under Empire script. But here, on this forgotten snowball, something stirred. It wasn't victory. It wasn't even resistance. It was refusal. Behind him, Isla called his name. He turned. "More scouts." "No," she said, voice taut. "Dropship." His jaw tightened. "Coming in fast?" "Low orbit. Big. No stealth." So they weren't playing anymore. He stared at the sky. The war had officially begun. And this time they had a gun. The transport ship Righteous Spark hovered over the crater-scarred valley once known as Anchorage. In its command chamber, Legate Tyreek stood before a holographic display, the glow casting hard lines across his surgically smooth face. His armor, sleek and polished obsidian, bore the crest of the Dominion's 10th Legion. He did not wear a helmet. Tyreek preferred to look at war with his own eyes. "Explain this to me again," he said coldly. The intelligence officer, Vel, swallowed. Initial scouts encountered primitive resistance at Grid Delta 8. Approximately 40 human fighters. Light weapons. Unsophisticated strategy. However, Tyreek's voice was quiet. That was always worse. Vel took a sharp breath. A manually operated ballistic rotary weapon inflicted 37 casualties on the strike team. Ammunition pierced standard composite plating. Some accounts suggest the weapon had no targeting assistance. It was crank-driven. Tyreek turned slowly. His boots clicked against the obsidian floor. You're telling me that 37 legionnaires, augmented, trained, conditioned, were torn apart by a museum piece? No, Leggett. I'm telling you, they were torn apart by the men operating it. Silence pressed in, taut as a wire. Tyreek approached the viewport, watching as clouds shifted beneath them. The humans had begun to agitate more broadly over the past few months. Pockets of resistance forming, more organized, more coordinated. But this was something else. He spoke without turning. Dispatch second Talon. 50 infantry. No exosuits. Minimal support. I want them to walk in like gods. Let the humans see the face of discipline. Understood, Bell said, bowing. Any restrictions? No energy weapons. No drones. Steel and breath alone. I want their defiance buried under polished boots and cold obedience. Beneath them, the snowy plain stretched like a burial shroud. The second Talon prepared for deployment. At Fort Desolation, Ward watched the skies darken with approaching transports. The humming in the air had returned, the sound of ships too confident to cloak. He stood atop the ridge beside the Gatling gun, its barrels already cleaned and loaded. Isla arrived with her rifle and a half-empty thermos of coffee, steam curling from the top. They're coming heavy, she said. Larger force than last time. Tighter formation. No air support spotted, though. Arrogance, Ward muttered, taking the thermos. The coffee burned his throat and didn't warm him at all. They think last time was luck. They always do. The rest of the crew had taken up new positions. Dixon's squad was now stationed further west, luring the enemy down the frozen riverbed. Tens and Deeks had set charges under the ridgeline snowbank, remote triggers and fallback routes ready. They had no reinforcements, no backup. The closest living human was 300 miles south, and even that wasn't certain anymore. You ever get tired of being outnumbered? Isla asked, crouching beside the gun. Ward gave a wry smile. Only when we run out of bullets. They watched the approaching line of soldiers, disciplined, perfect, gleaming. 100 feet away, the front rank stopped. One soldier stepped forward, unarmed. He removed his helmet, revealing a face that was almost human but eerily smooth, symmetrical, empty of scars or story. This is your final opportunity to surrender, the soldier declared in a voice amplified by internal comms. You face a lawful cleansing authorized by the Galactic Dominion. Compliance will be rewarded. Ward leaned into the weapon, resting one hand on the crank. Tell them, he whispered. Isla took the shot. The diplomat's head snapped back. The body remained standing for a moment before collapsing forward into the snow. The second Talon opened fire. Rounds from pulse carbines streaked across the snow, dazzling and humming with heat. But the humans had already moved. Isla rolled right, rifle finding targets before she hit the ground. Ward rotated the gun's mount, sighting the center of the line. He began to crank. The Gatling gun screamed. The noise, mechanical and feral, cut across the battlefield. It drowned out the wind, the shouts, even the dying. Bullets ripped through the front lines of the Dominion troops. Too fast for them to adjust, too dense for their armor to withstand. Tyreek, observing from orbit, watched the carnage unfold on a live feed. Why are they not breaking formation? He snapped. Vel swallowed. Talon protocol forbids deviation without command override. Override it, Tyreek barked. Pull them back. Flank. Anything but this march into a storm. But planetside, it was too late. The Talon soldiers moved like they'd been trained, straightforward, without question. The human defenders didn't care about precision or elegance. They used chaos, noise, old strategies, dirty ones. From the trees, Dixon's team laid suppressive fire. Tripwires detonated small concussive blasts that disoriented the already reeling infantry. Some fell back. Others pushed forward, only to vanish in cloud of snow and shrapnel. Ward's arms ached. The crank jerked in his grip, hot now, trembling with each rotation. He'd built endurance for this. Trained his body to serve the machine. The gun roared with him. Spent casings poured like brass rain. Snow melted from the heat blooming around them. Isla was covered in soot and frost, moving between reloads like a shadow. Her precision never faltered. Every motion had purpose. Eventually, the fire stopped. Smoke curled across the battlefield. Bodies, black armor now chipped, burned, shattered, lay scattered in arcs that mapped the gun's rotation. Blood darkened the snow. The silence was profound. Ward sat back on his heels, panting. His gloves were torn. One palm bled freely where the crank had ripped the skin open. Isla looked at him. "We're still here." He nodded once. Back on the righteous spark, Tyreek ended the feed and clenched both fists behind his back. The room around him was silent. Even Vel looked pale now. How many survivors? 7. 2 critically wounded. 4 retreating on foot. 1 captured. Captured? Vel nodded. "One of ours. Female communications officer. Reports say she surrendered." Tyreek turned his head slightly. "We trained them not to surrender. She's only 23 cycles old." Vel offered weakly. "She's useless now." Tyreek waved a hand. "Let them keep her. Let her watch what comes next." Vel hesitated. "What has come next?" Tyreek didn't answer. Instead, he stepped away from the window and into the war chamber's lower platform. Inside a sealed pod was a heavier schematic, Metch drones, and tactical warframes that had not been used on Earth yet. The kind of equipment reserved for insurgencies on hostile colony worlds. He tapped a button. The case hissed open. "Prepare hammer protocol. Tell command we need a Class 2 atmospheric drop. 3 days from now." Vel blinked. "But Leggett, we were told to avoid escalation on Earth." Tyreek's voice was stone. "You do not understand escalation. This is not escalation. This is reminder. These people still think resistance is noble. That bullets and snow and sweat can stop time." Outside the ship, the Arctic wind howled like it was mourning something. On the surface, Fort Desolation remained quiet. The bodies had been cleared. The gun had been reloaded. But the defenders didn't celebrate. They didn't joke. Isla sat beside Ward as he wrapped his hand in a ragged bandage. "They're not going to come like that again," she said softly. "No," Ward agreed. "Next time, they'll come to end something." Isla stared out at the horizon, where the smoke still lingered. "You ever wonder if we've gone too far to come back?" Ward didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice was low. "We were never going back." The wind rose. The snow fell. And far above, the Dominion's real war machine stirred in orbit. Ward stood knee-deep in powder, staring out across the blighted expanse. The crater field stretched endlessly before him, silent now, but not still. Scavenger drones buzzed low, scanning the wreckage of the last Dominion drop. Their twisted mesh still bled coolant into the snow, staining it blue. Not even the wolves would come near. He raised a pair of battered binoculars, scanning the far ridge. The wind bit through his jacket, found the weak seams, gnawed at his ribs. Still, he held steady. He could feel the storm coming in, not in the clouds, but in the tension of the air, in the low hum just beyond hearing. Behind him, Isla crouched near the comms rig. The antenna was half melted, jury-rigged with copper wire and scavenged carbon strips from a down hoverbike. It crackled with static. Nothing but echoes, she muttered, adjusting a knob. Same as yesterday. Same as the day before. Ward turned. You'll get it working. You always do. Her lips twitched. Not sure encouragement counts for much when we're blind, deaf, and outnumbered. Ward offered her the flask, but she waved it off. He took a sip anyway, the warmth hitting like a punch to the throat. We buy time, he said. Every day we hold. Someone else stands up. Isla shook her head. There might not be anyone left to stand. They both knew she wasn't being dramatic. Whole continents had gone dark. Dominion orbital strikes had silenced vast cityscapes. Pulverized resistance nests before they could blink. The fact that Ward's unit was still breathing was more anomaly than miracle. Movement on the ridge caught Ward's eye. A figure, alone, small, stumbling. He tensed, signaling Isla with 2 fingers. She spun her rifle forward, already sighting. Then the figure raised both hands. Through the binoculars, Ward could make out a uniform, Dominion, but scorched, ragged. Female, one of theirs. Looks like our captured comms officer, he said grimly. Isla didn't lower the rifle. Could be bait. Ward nodded. It usually is. But she didn't stop. She kept coming, slow, shivering. When she finally dropped to her knees 30 yards from their perimeter, Ward approached cautiously. Isla flanked him. The woman's face was pale, raw from wind exposure. Her hair had been roughly shorn. Her eyes, once sterile and cold in Dominion gray, now shimmered with something else. Fear, maybe. Humanity. I'm not here to spy, she rasped. I escaped. They were going to erase me. Wipe me. I ran. Ward knelt in front of her. Why? Her lip trembled. Because you fight like people. Because you bleed and still stand. Because you looked at gods and didn't kneel. I didn't know that was possible until I saw it. Isla circled behind her. She's clean. No trackers. Body temps normal. Looks like she's telling the truth. Ward helped the woman up. Name. Sarah. I used to be Sarah. No one's used to be anything out here, Ward said. You are what you do. They brought her into the bunker, what was left of it. The command center had been buried by a glide bomb last week. Now they worked from the old generator room, dimly lit by salvaged solar strips and powered by a half-dead engine Isla coaxed into life every other morning. Sarah sat with her back to the wall, sipping from a chipped mug. She spoke in quiet bursts. Tactical deployments, carrier routines. Most importantly, she spoke of the new protocol Tyreek had initiated. Hammer, they're not just coming to wipe you out, she explained. They're coming to film it, broadcast it to every remaining system still watching. They want Earth to be a warning. Ward stood near the door, arms crossed. When? Sarah swallowed. Tomorrow. Maybe less. They're deploying a torchwave pod. Compact fusion. Turns air into fire. Isla was staring at the map on the wall. The red pins outnumber the blue 10-1. How many soldiers? She asked. None, Sarah said. This isn't a fight. It's a lesson. The silence that followed was oppressive. It was Ward who broke it. We leave tonight. Isla turned. Go where? Everywhere, he said. We spread. Make noise. Drag them into the trees. Into the dark. Into the blood and bone of this land. He looked at Sarah. You said they want a message. We'll give them one. The convoy moved at dusk. 3 snow crawlers and a dozen runners on foot. They split into 3 units, each with a detonator. Each with a job. Sabotage, decoy, and strike. Sarah rode with Ward. She hadn't spoken since dawn, her face tight, knuckles white on her lap. You still with me? Ward asked as they bounced over a frozen ditch. She nodded. "You don't owe us anything," he said carefully, "if this is about guilt." "No," she cut him off. "This is about defiance." That was enough. They reached the old weather station, long abandoned, half frozen into the hill. Inside, Isla's team had set up the first diversion. Heat signatures, gunfire recordings, even a hacked Dominion distress beacon. It would read like a desperate fight from orbit. "We need 5 more minutes," Isla called out, rewiring the second relay. Ward posted up outside, scanning the horizon. The snow was falling again, fine, fast, almost invisible. And then it stopped. Everything stopped. A low hum began. He looked up. It wasn't a ship. It was a wound in the sky. A pod, fat and pulsing, descending too fast for safety. Behind it trailed a web of atmospheric burn. It hit 2 ridges over, throwing up a geyser of melted rock and snow. The torch wave had landed. Sarah was already moving, grabbing a comms box. "Their sensor sweep is seconds out. We have to trigger everything now, or they'll filter out the decoys." Isla swore, slicing connection. "Ward, I see it." He yanked the detonator from his belt and thumbed the override. "On my mark," he growled. Outside, the hum became a roar. 3, 2, he hit the trigger. Across the valley, fire bloomed. Old Dominion tech ruptured in chained eruptions. Isla's fake screamed with pre-recorded agony. Explosive charges buried under ice cracked upward like thunder. For one long moment, the planet screamed with the illusion of chaos. And then Ward saw them. Descending figures, dark, tall, slow. Not men. Warframes. 50-foot bipedal seed suits. Coated in atmospheric shielding, bristling with non-conventional weapons. They walked like titans and looked like tombs. Ward stared up at them, heart pounding. "They're not pulling punches anymore," Isla murmured. "No," Ward agreed. "They're showing off." But Sarah stepped forward, eyes locked on the lead warframe. "That one," she said. "That's Tyreek." Ward blinked. "He's planet-side?" "They're filming this live. He wants to step on your bones himself." Ward gave a slow nod. "Then we give him a show." The team split again. Isla and 3 runners circled east to bait one of the frames toward the gorge, where they'd rigged collapsible ice sheets over a geothermal fissure. Ward and Sarah moved west, aiming for a small knoll just behind the weather station, a place that would give line of sight without full exposure. The warframes advanced like gods. Buildings crumbled under their feet. Trees burst apart from the pressure alone. Ward knelt, setting up the last belt on the Gatling gun. It was mounted now, reinforced with tripod legs scavenged from an old Dominion beacon tower. "You're going to shoot that at them?" Sarah asked, incredulous. Ward didn't look up. "It's not the bullets. It's the principle." He began to crank. The gun spat metal. It might have been useless. Against plating like that, even 50 rounds per second would barely scratch. But the Dominion didn't know where to look. The noise drew their eyes. The chaos made them hesitate. The programming faltered. Isla's charge detonated. The eastern warframe crashed into the fissure, vaporized by natural fire. Sarah activated the uplink, transmitting a coded loop back to orbit. Footage of the kill, the resistance, the sheer audacity. It wasn't live, but it would look real. Tyreek's warframe paused. And for the first time, Ward saw hesitation. They'd made him think. Then the return fire came. The slope disintegrated. The world flipped sideways. Something threw Ward off his feet. Heat, wind, pressure. He rolled, deafened, blinded, but alive. The gun was gone. Just fragments of his frame, buried in twisted snow. Sarah was on her back, coughing blood. Ward crawled toward her, dragging what was left of the medkit. Her eyes fluttered. You made him stop, she whispered. He took her hand. You did that. She smiled once, faintly. Good. The light in her eyes went out. Ward looked up, vision blurred, lungs burning. Tyreek's warframe loomed above the ridge, backlit by fire. But it wasn't advancing. It was waiting, watching. The sky cracked again, new ships descending. More of them. Reinforcements. Or perhaps something else. Ward's grip tightened on his sidearm. It wasn't over. Not yet. Smoke curled from the crater where the last ridge had stood. The air was a metallic soup of scorched ozone and singed ice. Ward crouched behind a broken supply drone. One hand pressed his ribs, the other gripping the last remaining pulse grenade. Blood seeped between his fingers, thick and slow, mixing with the ash on his coat. Around him, the world had folded into a war zone of ruins and whispers. He could barely hear over the ringing in his skull. He kept blinking, trying to force clarity into his vision, but it wouldn't come. It was like looking through cracked glass. His breath fogged in the air before him, but each inhale brought fire to his chest. His body had become a catalog of pain. Across the shattered slope, Tyreek's warframe still stood, monolithic, still, almost contemplative. The Dominion commander hadn't moved in over a minute. It was as if he were absorbing the failure, recalculating. A god second-guessing himself. Ward knew better than to believe in hesitation. He reached over slowly, snagging a fallen comms unit. It flickered, barely functional. Static hissed. Then, Isla's voice broke through, sharp and labored. Ward, are you alive? He smiled despite himself. Define alive. I've got 2 runners left, she said. Ridge team is gone. Sarah, dead. Silence. Then, understood. I've got 1 shot at scrambling their optics. Give me 60 seconds. No, Ward growled. Make it 30. He clicked the grenade active and crawled forward, each movement stabbing hot needles into his side. The snow wasn't white anymore. It was stained with history, charred by defiance. Tyreek's warframe began to move again, rotating slightly. Cameras glinted along its faceplate, like compound eyes of some terrible insect. The head tracked slowly left to right, hunting, still searching for confirmation. It hadn't seen Ward's final position. 30 seconds. Ward reached the lip of the broken plateau, crouching low behind a mangled power relay. From here, the beast loomed above him, massive and elegant in a terrible way, angular armor polished to gleam under plasma fire. It didn't belong to this planet. It didn't belong to any planet. It was a symbol, not a machine. 20 seconds. He breathed slow, focused, remembered. Sarah's hands, trembling around the comm box. Isla's voice over a crackling feed. His squad's laughter around a stolen fire. The wide-eyed terror that first night the sky opened, when the stars burned bright with enemy metal. He'd never expected to survive, but survival wasn't the goal. 10 seconds. He rose from cover, hurling the grenade with his last good arm. It sailed in a perfect arc, bouncing once off the mech's shoulder before sticking magnetically to the neck joint. Tyreek's warframe jerked, sensors flickering in recognition. Too late. The detonation lit the sky. It wasn't a kill shot. It wasn't designed to be. The charge shorted optics, scrambled local radar, sent feedback loops into targeting software. For 3 perfect seconds, Tyreek was blind. Isla's signal hit. A sudden burst of chaff across the ridge, followed by a precision EMP strike from the north crest. She had saved it for this moment. All of it. The warframe staggered, its knees locking, gears whining. Ward could see it stutter. That was his moment. He charged. Every instinct screamed against it. Wounded, exhausted, overmatched. But he ran anyway, clutching the last thermite charge to his chest. The slope blurred under his feet. Each stride was agony, but each step brought him closer. Tyreek tried to move. The mech's arms jerked as the systems rebooted. Ward hit the leg, the massive armor plate just above the ankle joint, and climbed. His gloves found purchase in impact craters and carbon scars. He clambered up, gritting his teeth against the cold, against the wind, against the scream of his own body. He reached the vent shaft behind the primary coolant node and jammed the charge in deep. It hissed to life. 10 seconds. Tyreek noticed. The warframe began to twist, dislodge, shake. But Ward hung on. He pressed his hand to the hull. "Tell your empire," he said aloud, not shouting, just speaking, "that Earth does not kneel." Then he let go. The blast ripped him from the side of the mech, hurling him backward through the air like a rag in a storm. He hit the ice hard. For a moment, he saw nothing. Then he opened his eyes. Above, Tyreek's warframe listed, then collapsed sideways. It hit the slope with a seismic crack. Steam geyser from its joints. One leg was gone. The other bent backward, unnaturally. Its chest plate burned, melted down to the subframe. Ward didn't rise. He couldn't. His limbs weren't listening anymore. Footsteps crunched nearby. A shadow passed overhead. A face appeared, mud-smeared, half-frozen. "Isla, you stupid bastard," she said, kneeling. "I had a good throw. You nearly died. Wouldn't be the first time." She pressed gauze to the side. "There's a medevac drone inbound. Took over Dominion route. You got maybe 5 minutes." "I don't need 5, he muttered. "Just 2. And a drink." She didn't laugh. Not really. But her hand didn't leave his shoulder. Overhead, the sky shifted. A dozen Dominion shuttles reversed course. Others spiraled out of orbit, out of control. Someone had taken down a relay. Ward's pulse fluttered. "Who?" Isla looked up. "Looks like whatever you broadcasted caught fire. The resistance nets up again. There's chatter from Tokyo Crater, Sao Paulo, even the lunar fringe." Ward blinked slowly. "They saw. They heard," Isla said. Sarah's signal spread. Her voice. Her data. He managed half a smile. "Good." Across the battlefield, Dominion forces began retreating. Not all. Some still fire, confused, bound by broken code. But the retreat was clear. Isla looked down at him. "You're going to make it." Ward didn't believe her, but it was kind of her to say. 2 weeks later, Ward stood, barely, on the edge of the shattered plateau, wrapped in layers of cloth and bandages. He watched the sun rise over the ridge. The field below was no longer littered with death. Teams moved among the wreckage, salvaging what they could. Children from a nearby colony threw snow at each other, laughing. Dominion broadcasts had gone dark. Not silence gone. Something had broken. Isla stood beside him, arms crossed. "They said you should give a speech." "I did," Ward said, sipping from his flask, "with a thermite charge." She chuckled. "You're a terrible hero. Then they'll have to find better ones." She nodded. Behind them, the wind carried the echo of rebuilding. Hammers, voices, new power lines crackling to life. Ward turned his eyes to the stars. The war wasn't over, but something fundamental had changed. For the first time, the galaxy had witnessed something impossible. A primitive world, a forgotten people, striking back, not with hypertech or AI or orbital superiority, with stubbornness, with grit, with an old gun and older defiance. And the galaxy was listening. He stepped forward, letting the cold bite his face, letting it remind him that he was still here, still human, still fighting. And somewhere, he hoped, Sarah was watching.